So to get started in creating a poster session in PowerPoint, and again, I don't necessarily or at all recommend this program for this, but you can use it that way. I'll show you some ways that you can make sure that things are lined up correctly, that you've got kind of a good grid pattern going into it. And then at the end, I will point you to some other programs and some other guides that can maybe help you start your poster in a different program. So again, we'll just jump in and get started here. First, I'm just going to create a new blank presentation. So now we are on this opening slide. I can close my design ideas over here. And we're going to create a slide that is a 3-foot by 4-foot poster. So what I'm going to do here is I'm going to just go ahead and highlight both of these boxes here and just delete those. So I start with a blank slide here. And then from the design tab, I'm going to go over here to slide size and click on custom slide size. Now, one of the first limitations of PowerPoint is it will not go beyond 58 inches in either direction. So you're a little bit limited by size here, but we can just change our width to 48 inches and our height to 36. And we'll click OK. This is if we had graphics on our slide and we would want to either stretch them to fill in the whole space, but we don't have those. So either of these options is fine. I just click maximize. And now we have a blank slide and we want to create kind of a pattern in the background that will help us lay things out. So InDesign is not a copy and layout program, which is what you would typically use to create something like a poster. And so what we need to do is we need to create kind of a little grid in the background that we can use to line up our objects. And this is what I suggest that you do here. I have already got a Excel spreadsheet pulled up and I've done some calculations here. So this is just figuring out my spacing on this. This is something that you don't have to do if you have one of these copy and layout programs available. But here I need to make boxes that are the right size so that I can line them up to make sure that my spacing is all even. So here you can see I start with the poster width. I'm subtracting, I'm going to say 4 columns across here. We've got a left margin of 1/2 inch, and then the spacing between the columns and on the right margin is all 1/2 inch. Same thing with the height. I'm going to choose a poster height of 36. My title section that I create is going to be 6 inches tall. The spacing between the title and the first, actually, probably move that up there, but this will work. So the top margin is 1/2 inch and the bottom margin 1/2 inch as well. And then all I did is I came in here and I took the poster width, I subtracted the number of spaces between the columns, I subtracted the left margin, and then divided that by 4 to get our total of 11.375. Doing it in Excel like this does help. So if I did want to change this to maybe do 3 columns instead, then I would have 3 columns that are 15.33 repeating there. But I'm going to leave this at 4 and we'll just update that there. Same thing, this is helpful if you decide to remove some of the space from the top. You could maybe change that to 5 and then we get a slightly taller column height. But again, I'm going to leave that kind of here. So all of that to say, we're going to go in and I'm going to create, we can start with our title. So I know that I want it to be 6 inches. And since my margins are 1/2 inch, I can click here, making sure everybody, 48-inch wide slide here. So then I need to make a shape. So I'm going to click here in my drawing tools and just grab my first box here. And I'm going to make this, I'm going to kind of eyeball it here. And then once we create a shape, so I just clicked on that rectangle, and here it is over here as well. Just make a box. And then when we go into our shape format, over here with the size, this is where we can change the width and the height of this shape. So again, I know that I wanted this to be 6 inches tall, so I can change the height to 6 inches. And the width should be 48 minus 1, so 47. It was pretty close there. And the positioning, this is something that is a little bit harder to do. That's telling me that it's centered. You can also go to align and then align center to make sure. And so if this were off center, kind of like that, I could do align and then center, and then it will center that right above this. And so knowing that this is 47 inches and it's centered, I know that I've got a 1/2 inch of space on either side here. Now I'm going to come in and create my columns. So again, I'm going to jump over to my spreadsheet and just look at this. So there's a 1/2 inch of space below the 6-inch title. And then these columns are 11.375 by 28.5. So let's go ahead and create one here. So I'm going to go back to PowerPoint, click on my shape or my rectangle here, start about where I think it should be, and it should be about this big. Let's see. So the height, I think it was pretty close. Let's check one more time. 28.5. So let's go back to PowerPoint. 28.5. And my width was 11.375. So that's the width of this first column, and I can kind of move this up. And you can see that there's some little helpers that will show you that you are spacing this out correctly. I think that should work maybe a little bit closer. I'll show you another way that you can double check all of this. All that good. Now I'm going to copy and paste this. We'd need 3 more, so that's 1, 2, 3. And I'll pull this one over here, get it aligned with my first column. Bring the other one over. Sometimes I'll show you how to fix this spacing a little bit. Just get those aligned at the top. So you can see this one is not spaced as equally as the others. So if I click on these, I can hold Shift and click on each of these. I think I just moved it accidentally. So you can hold Shift and click on each of these if you're very careful not to move your mouse while you're clicking. Or you can draw a box, and anything that's inside this box, like I did at the very beginning of this, will be selected. So it'll select those 4 rectangles. And then under Arrange and Align, I can go in, sorry, this little tooltip popped up. I go to Align, I can then go to Distribute Horizontally, and that will just even out the spacing in between all of those columns. So if you did your calculations in Excel or on a sheet of paper, if you space things out correctly, you should get even spacing. And again, we'll replace these as we go along with our text and information. Now, after we get this little template set up here, we then need to go get our information that we need to pull into this. So the first thing I want to talk about is the OPA website, or our branding website, where it has all of our different colors and different logos that we can use. So I'm going to type this in. This takes us to the right page. Yeah. Pull this over here. So here on this brand page, so this is just brand.msstate.edu. I'm going to copy and paste this in the chat. This leads into some of the most common mistakes that we see when we're printing people's posters. And that the first thing is that, and if I click on assets here, the first thing is that the logo is blurry, or it's stretched or manipulated in some crazy way, or even just subtle way, but you can tell that it's not correct. Instead of just Googling the MS State logo or whatever, what you would want to do is find a page like this and then download the logos from here. That way you know you're getting a high quality version, one that can be blown up to the size of a poster and still work. Another drawback from using PowerPoint is that you are limited in the files that you can bring in. So If we were using something like InDesign, we could actually pull in these EPS options, which are vector images, which means that they don't pixelate when you increase their size. They're just, you can blow them up to the size of a billboard or shrink them down to the size of a business card, and they don't lose resolution. You can, however, since we're working with PowerPoint, you can use either the JPEGs or really the PNGs, because PowerPoint only works in RGB mode. So you can't get to the Pantone or the CMYK options. So probably for PowerPoint, using the large PNG, that way you have something that's large. You can always make it smaller, but if you start with a small one, you can't make it bigger. So or as big as if you start with the larger one. So I'm going to go in and I'm going to go ahead and select this PNG small. And it most likely will open up my browser. It does it all. Oh, sorry, and I click small. Let me click large. So this just opens in my browser, and then I can right click and save this as, or save image as, and you can see I've already got it downloaded. So this will be a number 1. That's fine. So it puts it in my downloads folder. And while I'm here, before I move off of this page, if I scroll down, you can also find your university units. And when you download the zip file for each of these units, you then have all of these options for each of those individual units. So again, you just click on this list here. If you want to add the We Ring True, you can use those as well. And then here's the color palette. So especially in working with PowerPoint, and I'm going to make a note of this so I don't have to switch from one browser to another. So our maroon color, you can see, and hopefully it may be too hard to read on this screen, but so there is a Pantone color, which is 505, which you can just type into copy and layout programs, and that will match that up. But here we need to write down the RGB colors. So for maroon, that is 93, 23, 37 for our maroon. And then I'll grab the light gray. So then just making a note on a piece of paper here. So the gray is 193, 198, 200. And let's grab an accent color, and let's say that we use the darker blue. So RGB blue. 0, 127, 163. So those will pull in, and I'll show you how you create those in PowerPoint. And then there are some libraries. If you're using the Adobe programs, you can download those. And I think going down even further, there are some PowerPoint templates. We're going to try to talk with the people that run this page and get some other options for templates up here. But you can start with those, and that just pulls in the logo for you and changes some text. But let's jump back to PowerPoint now. So what I can do here, so I'm using these as sort of placeholders. So I can, if I know that I want to put the logo here, maybe I want it to span this first column, I could decrease the size of this just by grabbing the side handle and just pull it to where it's aligned with my second column here. And so then that gives me this little gap where I can put my logo. And actually, let's not do that because we're doing the white logo. So let's say that we want to, well, I guess we could do something. Let's do something just a little bit different to change things up. I'm going to go grab the maroon logo. So I'm going to go back to this page and scroll back up. And I'll grab this maroon logo. Save image as. And then when I come back here, I can just go to Insert and then Pictures from this device, because I have it saved here. And if I go to my downloads, I can find my maroon with a white banner and click Insert. And here it is. Just going to line that up to the top. Now in PowerPoint, this is about a 98% always do this rule, but you never want to drag, like, so if I decide I want to fill in this space, you do not want to grab the sides like this and stretch the logo just to fit, because then you end up stretching it. So what you want to do is, if I undo that, let's just Control Z, or your back arrow up here at the top. You want to use this corner handle. So if I get that lined up here, I think the urge that drives people to make this change is that they see, oh, well, now it's not filling in this gap here. Well, if it doesn't fill in that gap there, just center it. Just find a way to center it vertically instead of stretching it. So you never want to stretch the logo out. And we see that a lot. Next, I'm going to move over here and we're going to convert this into a text box. But first, I want to, in my shape format tools, or actually I was on a home tab, which does have the shape, fill, and outline. I'm just going to jump to the shape format. So shape format, this gives you just a few more options, some different styles that you can look at. But you have a shape fill and you have a shape outline. So in this case, I'm going to change my shape fill. It doesn't have the color that I'm looking for here. So I'm going to click on more fill colors. And that's where I can go in and I can type in my RGB numbers. Now there is, I forgot that you can use the hex number. So if I jump back to the brand page again and scroll down, there are these hex numbers. But to me, I remember just the numbers instead of trying to throw letters in as well. But you can write down either one of these and those will work in PowerPoint. So I chose to write down the RGB, so we'll just go with that. So for my maroon color, it is 93, 23 for green, and 37 for blue. So this gives us our maroon color, and I can click OK. So that, when we print this, should match this fairly well since they're both in RGB. And again, I think that's key there, is just being consistent with that color throughout. Sometimes it comes out a little bit more red, sometimes a little more purple, depending on how the printer translates this PowerPoint file. So one other thing is you can decide whether or not you want the outline. So again, either from shape format or from your drawing tools here, I can tell it to have no outline. So then that just is just a maroon box without any outline. And we'll kind of do the same with these as well. So you don't have to have a color behind your text. And in fact, what I'm going to do is change the color to white. So instead of telling it no fill, I want it to have a white background with no outline. And I probably could have done this at the beginning, but I just wanted you to be able to see the shapes here. So just do the same thing. And once you change it for one, you can click on it, and then the white is selected for the fill and the outline. Same here, to fill and outline. And then the last one, fill and outline. All right. So now to start adding text. So now these are still here. Don't think that they have vanished. They're just not, you just can't see them. Which I guess, for the sake of this workshop, I'm going to go ahead and leave an outline on these so that we know that they're there. And now for the title. So we just used regular rectangles, but if you right click, you can go into edit text and it converts this into a text box. So my typical title that I use for all of these, this is from a workshop we did a while back, or a poster that I helped one of our librarians with a while back. I'm going to change this, and I picked just kind of a bold serif font. All right. So you can type that in. You can sort of play with your fonts. You can decrease this to see if you can get it all on one line. So maybe that works better for me. If I want it broken like that, that's kind of a waste of space, I think. But I can also align this to the top of the box. So right-clicking on a shape like this and doing Format Shape will open up this Format Shape dialog box. And notice there's shape options where I can change things like my fill color, which we've changed just by going through these shortcuts up here. But then I can click on text options. You've got your text fill, your text reflections and shadows and things like that. And then the text box options, this is where I could choose my vertical alignment and tell it to align that to the top of the box. And something that's helpful in this little format shape is the text frame or the text box margins. So notice how I think that's a little bit close to the top of the box there. So I could create a larger top margin. So if I just increase this here, and notice that even though it's aligned to the top, so if I click in here and move down to another line and maybe change my font to something smaller, 640. All right. And I'm going to do this and show you where you can get to your glyphs and things, which I don't think you can do in PowerPoint, but oh, no, you can. We have our symbol here. Okay, just remembering. So this is aligned to the top. I could, if I wanted to say, okay, well, now that I see the text that I have in here, I could go back to just middle alignment. And remember, I changed my top margin. So if I just bump that back down to match my bottom margin, which I don't know why it's slightly different, but then that'll center that vertically. So again, you can change, you can align that to the top or you can align it to the bottom. Now, the one that I wanted to show you, the next thing that I wanted to show you here, and I'm going to try to zoom in so it's a little bit easier to see. That'll work. So inserting your glyphs, now there, and I keep saying glyphs, they're also symbols. So things like if we wanted to do a little dagger or a double dagger for indicating which people come from which university listed here, so as just a way to save space. So in PowerPoint, you can go to Insert and then Symbol. And this is always hard to find, and I always forget to take a look before I sit down and teach a workshop. Let's go. Just kind of scroll through. Oh, thankfully they are right here toward the bottom of the. So this basically is a character map, and so it shows you all the characters that are available in this particular font. So if I scroll down to the bottom, thankfully the dagger and the double dagger were right here. I can't remember where my cursor was, but I'm just gonna go ahead and say insert. Oh, and thankfully it was right after my name. And I'm gonna go ahead and insert the double dagger as well. Because then once they're in here, you can just copy and paste. And that's another shortcut that I like to recommend. If you find it online somewhere, like if you just Google dagger and double dagger and you find them, you can copy and paste from your browser into your poster session file. So once you have it, you can just copy and paste it. I'm going to go ahead and make them superscript. So if I highlight that and come back here, this is another spot where it's a little bit harder to do in PowerPoint. I think I have to go into my font. Yep. So in my font settings, so I click this little call out button and I'm going to choose superscript, click OK. So we get those. And then I can just copy and paste the one that I need. And then this one I will actually just do a cut. And we'll do paste. And I believe we pasted before these here. So now I'm going to go in and I'm going to make, we need some heading. So we've got our sort of text areas here, which will work fine. But now I need to come in here with a box, and I'm going to make a box that's the same width as the column. And I can double check, so it's 11.38. And then the height, I'm just going to make it 1.5 inches. And so these are going to be our headings that we use to sort of denote different areas of our poster here. And I click on this, and if I go to Shape Fill, you'll see that under Recent Colors, I have my maroon color. And now I can, you can either double click, and that will convert that to a text box, or you can right click and do Edit Text. And again, I'm going to go back to my Home tab. I'll use that same font that I used at the beginning. Make it about 36 usually works, maybe 48. I'm going to type the word background. And then, just like I did with these in the background, these text areas back here, I'm going to take this and just copy and paste it as many times as I need. So Control C to copy, and then we'll do 2 more. I'll do one here. I'm just kind of eyeballing and assuming this is about how much my data is going to fill up. I'm going to copy and paste again and put one over here, thinking other one, just leave it up here at the top. And copy and paste again. And then I'm going to copy and paste one more time and show you that even though we created 4 columns here, you don't have to stick with that. Like, this is just an idea of how to set things up. So right here, I'm going to take this background and this header here, and I'm going to drag it across to where it covers both of these columns. And then I'm going to highlight this and just change this to results. And again, these headings would match whatever poster or whatever headings you've got in your research paper based on whatever style you're following or whatever you decided to call these. I believe this was objectives in this particular paper. Technology. We had conclusions and acknowledgements. So I'm just going to copy and paste some things from Word here. And something that you can do is if I just click in here and I paste this text, this will give me a new text box. And then I can bring this over and sort of just match this to the size that I need it to be. Just start increasing your point size. I always recommend that, and especially if you're in one of these Microsoft programs, I just pick 36 as my font size and try to get things to fit at that size. I always say that if you're looking at trying to get more information into your poster, try to do it by editing out some of the information before you just start shrinking the font, which I know that that's going through another editorial step, but really in a poster session, you want to be able to summarize your data very succinctly. So taking out some extra text is better than shrinking it down to a size where you can't really read it. So I always say 36, and I say that 33 is my limit. So you could go down, and we can see what this looks like at 33, which it doesn't seem like it would be a whole lot, but if I did reduce it by 33, I get about a whole inch of space on this poster. Think about that. Again, shoot for 36. I think that's a perfectly good size. Probably a little bit bigger than it needs to be, but I think that it looks better to have large text than trying to make it look like you're cramming everything in. So I'm choosing something like that for this. I'm going to go back and grab my objectives. Oh, once you set up one of these text boxes, just like we did with these other ones, copy and paste this. And in fact, I'll just do this a couple of times. It does that kind of crazy thing there. But so this way, I've got some text boxes that are already set up with my preferred size and font. And I think it's just Times New Roman here, which will work with that. And then just copying and pasting this several times. So then I can go in and just replace this text with the next text. So if I go back here, and I'm not going to necessarily copy and paste all of this. Oops. And when you're pasting, so this is a good example. So when I paste it, you do have the option to click on your paste options, and then I can go to keep text only, and then that way it will not mess with the formatting. Now it does, when I do that, you'll see that my bullets don't really work the way they're supposed to. So I can just turn on bulleting here and then get rid of these extra little dots here. Oop. So then I still have bullets. All right, I'm going to do the same thing here with methodology. Let's see what all we can get in here. Keep text only. Oh, this is where I'm running out of room. So you've got to make decisions here. And I think this one we probably did make it 33. So we'll come back and look at that. I do want to jump over here to the results though, and talk about inserting our tables. So let me grab, I think I really have a list of things there. So I'm just going to delete that section. Probably should have something that describes the results a little bit. But I'm going to jump back into my folder and open up my charts. And I will say we looked at the those secondary colors, and you can see that what I did in here is if I go into enable content here. So what I did with these charts here is that I just went in and selected each of the series, and from my format tab here at the top, I changed my shape fill, and I don't have an outline on them. But you can see in the recent colors, I just went in and using the same RGB numbers, I created those colors here in Excel. So it sort of matches that overall MSU look. Is that required? No, but it's just saying it's something that you can do now that you know that you can put in those more fill colors and you can customize that the way you want it to look. Also, copying and pasting from Excel into other Microsoft programs. If I copy this and I go over to PowerPoint and I paste it, the one thing that I want to mention here, just like the paste as text, or sorry, paste text only here, I click on Control and then go over here to Picture. And then that way it doesn't mess with the formatting. It doesn't try to recolor anything. It doesn't connect to any other data. It just pastes a picture of your chart, and then I can move it over here. Again, same thing. You want to make sure that you use your corner handles here. And I'm just going to copy and paste this one just a couple of times here so we get kind of the idea of what that may look like. And I like this sort of layout because it sort of focuses on your data. So it or focuses on your results. And I think that that's something that I try to recommend. I think that that's what people want to see the most when they walk up to your poster. They want to see what they've figured out or what you have figured out and how you may apply that. I'm going to grab my conclusions, which I think. Oh, I have this backwards. So this actually belongs over here, which means we have more room to spread things out. So I'm going to put this in place. All right, and now I'm going to, so one of the reasons that I put these white backgrounds here, centered, is that if you wanted to create a color background for this whole poster, so if you wanted it to go edge to edge, that's something we can do on the wide format printer. And the way you would do that is you would just create a rectangle, and I'm going to make it slightly bigger than the whole slide. It fills in like that. And then if I change my fill color, and let's put in our, ooh, that was really bright. Let's put in our more fill colors. And the gray, the light gray, was 193. Click in the box first. 193 by 198, 200. And then click OK. Then I could right click on this, or you could use the buttons up here at the top. I'm just used to right clicking. Send to back. And now we have this sort of gray background behind everything. And I think I need to bump. If I want to see that border, I just need to bump these over so where it's not, the background of the chart is not overlapping the margins there. All right, now I made this a little bit bigger than the background. You don't have to, it's just to make sure that I've covered everything. And this essentially is like a bleed. I don't know that PowerPoint actually will export a bleed, but you could try it. Or if that bothers you, you could just put this back to the edges. And I do that mainly to make sure I didn't make it slightly smaller and then have a white border around it. Speaking of borders, let's take the shape outline off and say no outline there. And so that's kind of what that will look like. To submit this to print, what you want to do is go to File and then Save As. And you can also do Save as PDF, that works. I'm going to show you that in Save As well, as this is how it works in most other documents. I'll save this. We'll just put it in my Downloads folder again. I can change the Save As type, and then I can choose all of these different options here. In this case, I want to do a PDF. I always recommend, so first of all, to submit it to print, you need to save it as a PDF. But something else that saving it as a PDF helps with is that this is what is going to come out of the printer. So if I zoom in really close to this to check everything out, so I'm going to zoom in real close. The logo looks good. The font, I mean, there shouldn't be any issues there. But looking at my charts, so if I zoom in just a little bit closer, I mean, they're actually pretty clear. So that's very good. So, but if I get super close, it's impossibly close, you can see that there's a very little pixelation here, but think about the size of the poster. And if you put your face up this close to the poster, you would see some pixelation. So again, from a distance, not a problem at all. So I always use the PDF to sort of pan around and just make sure I'm looking for things like overlaps if something's not quite lined up right, which it looks like I did a pretty good job here. But usually I have like the conclusions is not quite lined up with the background here. Just kind of take a look at everything and make sure everything looks good. And then this is what you would submit online, and I can show you where that form is as well. So if I go to the library's homepage and I go to services and wide format prints, this takes me to this page, and you just fill out this information. And then down here, you would upload your PDF. And these are our prices. So for matte paper, it's $7.50 per foot. So we don't do square feet, we just do linear feet. And it's the longest linear foot. So a 4-foot poster would be $30. The glossy paper and vinyl paper, I don't really recommend the photo paper for poster sessions because it is very glossy. And so if the lighting is weird where you're presenting, it may have a reflection on it. So it's great if you do have pictures. The quality is super good, but just know that it has that really shiny photo finish. And then the matte vinyl just has like an adhesive backing on it that you can either peel and stick to something, or you can just leave it intact, and it just will be more tear resistant. It'll still wrinkle, it'll still take a crease or something like that, but it's much more difficult to tear it. And that should be it. We don't make any changes to it. So like I said, we see, colors coming out weird. We see graphics that are stretched all the time. But this particular service is you submit it, and as long as it's the size that you meant it to be, maybe the last big mistake that we see people do is they design a poster without having changed the size of the slide. So then we have to say, well, we can't just blow it up because then everything's going to get distorted. Your graphics are going to be off and all that sort of stuff. So be sure to change that size at the beginning. And also you can check in your PDF if you go to File and then Properties. You can see this is 48 by 36. That's something we always check. Sometimes this comes in and it says that it's 8.5 by 11, which is just a regular size sheet of paper. And that's usually when we do contact them and say, you said that this was 4 by 6, but it's really 8.5 by 11. So you need to redo it. And it's a pain to have to redo. It's not like starting from scratch, but you can resize it and hope that things stretch. But then that's not something that we do on our end. So be careful in PowerPoint. Be sure to change that slide size, which again, design, slide size, and then custom slide size here. And then that will work. Now, the programs that we do recommend are Publisher and InDesign. Let me go to our LibGuide here, and I will show you these. So let me copy and paste this into the chat here. So InDesign and Publisher. So Publisher comes free with our Microsoft Office subscription. The major drawback there is that it's not available for Mac computers. So Apple computers do not have access to Publisher. So that's why we started doing PowerPoint, because that is available on Publisher. So if you don't have access to something like InDesign or another copy and layout program, then PowerPoint may be your only option. We do have InDesign in our lab, so if you want to come in, if you've got all of your data and you just need to put it together, you can come in and use it in our Media Center lab. But on both of these pages, we've got handouts and tutorials and archive sessions on creating poster sessions, so I encourage you to take a look at those. And I'm thinking that we've got some, yes, so we've got a InDesign workshop coming up. That's in March 3rd. So again, I push people toward InDesign because making that grid to start with is so much easier. You can change things on the fly. You can use your vector images. I can't say enough good things about it. So if you've got questions, please let me know. If not, that's the end of what I wanted to cover today. And let me copy and paste my contact information. It's also on the LibGuide at the bottom here. I will copy and paste this. And so I was mentioning we don't edit things that come through the ticket system, but if you have worked on your poster and you want someone to take a look at it, please feel free to send it to me. And if I'm not available, Stephanie Agnew also teaches these workshops, and so she would be able to take a look and tell you if it's okay. So yes, and I will actually paste that recording on the PowerPoint page, so it'll be there, and I'll try to remember to email it out to everyone. If you don't hear from me, just shoot me a message to remind me, and I'll get it to you that way. All right, thank you very much. Thank you all for coming.